we're going to start the next stage, stage 1. And it just continues on from foundation you've been doing. And, but there's something we're going to focus on in stage 1 that we did not focus on in foundation. When we do this cropping process, what are we looking for that we weren't looking for before we cropped? What were we adjusting by doing this? I know I'm testing you, but I want you to think and answer. Like when we're doing our pictures, we're dealing with tone and texture, and then hues and colour, and then the second colour, and then line. When we crop and we define the picture, I said when we define the picture, we're looking at certain things that you can't see until you crop it. What were they? Direction. Because you could make that vertical, or you could make it at an angle. And if you cropped it this way, you'd lose all the verticals and everything would become diagonal. Direction. Composition's everything together. So this all comes under the heading of composition. So the thing that you did when you cropped was you fixed the direction. What else?
Edges, define the edges.
You define the edges of the picture, and within the edges, there's the directions defined. What else did you do when you cropped it? You couldn't do until you cropped it.
One of those.
I'll give you a clue.
Palette knives.
It's placement, where something goes. Is it in the centre? Or is it to the side? Direction and placement. And now, there's something else. If you look at the white thing. How much space? Yeah, we talked about how much space would we give it so it wasn't too cluttered. We could make it more cluttered or less cluttered with more space. Space.
So direction, placement.
Yeah, direction, placement and space. You can't do that if you haven't got a frame. It's the frame that does it. And I said to you when you were doing it, I said, so we started off with tone and surface relationships, and then we gradually, and after we did that, I said, now we're looking for the other things you can't see until you do this. Placement, direction and space.
So placement,
Well, placement, like that big black square there.
Yeah. When you
If it's in the centre, or if it's over the side. Because as soon as you change the placement of it, the feeling changes in the picture.
So the feeling.
The feeling of what should be, whether it should be central, where it should be over the side. I'm spending time on that because I'm trying to show you that what you're about to do isn't new. Right? It's not like, wow, he's teaching us new stuff, why didn't you tell us this before? It's just that we did it in the third step. The first step was make a surface, relate to another surface, relate to another surface, make another surface, two become one, add. Then crop it. When you crop it, you define it, and you define it with placement, direction and space, which is when you did that and then you did this, and you fold it over the edges, and now it was defined with how big things were, how big the spaces were, the directions, and where things were. Then we moved on. Are you comfortable with that? Do you remember that? Are you comfortable with that's what we did? But that was the third thing we did. And then once we defined it, I said, okay, now let's pull it back. Add hue. Add line. Add the second colour. Add brights. That's as far as you've got it. What you're about to do isn't anything new. It's just that it's in a different order. You can't do a painting on a canvas like this because you can't crop it and cut it out. you have to know the spaces and the directions and the sizes before you start. And that's why I've left it till now. Because if you start like this, if you start with the direction, the sizes and the spaces, you wouldn't have lasted at hART start very long. Because to do it, you have to put the painting on an easel, you have to step back. And when you do that, you engage a part of your mind, which is very critical. You step back and you take the pose of the critical parent. You're going, this is not a good way to start a painting. What we learn at hART start is to start a painting as the engaged child. And hopefully you've been an engaged child enough now, and you've gone into the pose of a critical parent while I was flat on the table and I told you to stand up and just adjust and adjust and adjust. That you won't be too critical of yourself. You'll be kind and you'll be the supportive parent. There's still a risk. So now we have to start the painting. So we're going to start the picture with size, and direction and placement before we add the texture. And to do that, when there's nothing on the page, I have to re-engage your neurons in a different way. You have to start from that point. I have to talk to you for the next half an hour to get you to think like this. It shouldn't be too hard if I explain it that way.
My only concern.
Okay, that's the preamble, just to get you connected that, oh, I've already done it, right? Part 2 of my seminar. And what I'm doing is just reconnecting your neurons, get you to think like this, and then we do it. I first discovered this when I was writing a Year 11 essay
The first reaction was that you
about the Last Supper.
quite well with hART.
And my teacher asked me to compare Leonardo's Last Supper with Tintoretto's Last Supper.
What worries me if you start not tissue papers,
And I had to write
but
why they were composed so differently.
consciously make flowers.
And that's when I discovered it. I went, wow, that's real. That really does happen. The first essay I wrote, he went, you missed the point, Gary. And because I was keen, I wrote the essay again. And what I discovered was, as I wrote this essay, the subject matter of the picture doesn't affect the mood. You know, this is the moment when Christ is betrayed by, or when he says one of you will betray me. But it's very ordered and calm because it's symmetrical, divides down the middle, and it's horizontal, which is very calming anyway. It's vertical, which is very strong and calming. And you're not confused because everything comes down to the centre part of the picture.
It's very floral, and these are very floral.
And when I wrote my essay,
no one would miss that they were.
got this one,
But your challenge
and I went like,
is
wow,
to treat
it's
it
entirely different for the same story.
It's a sort of a
You can't even really pick where Christ is. It's just a turmoil of wriggly lines. And
so
this
everything we've been doing is
oblique
trying to
of the
move
table
away from unpainting the flowers,
shoots diagonally across the canvas, and you sort of get thrown back into the distance.
One little edge, one little
And everything
one
twists and is
suggestion,
confusing.
And the brain fills in the
And it
rest.
sets up drama and energy
Tissue paper could
because
work
it's
really
composed
well.
differently.
If you
It's still the same thing. One of you will betray me.
quite arbitrary with it. And in other words,
And he's done
flowers
things
out
to
tissue.
make it even
I
more
just
confusing with
put
more
down
twisting curves
tissue and
in the top part of the composition. It's got no calming horizontals, no strong verticals.
twist them and push it, and they have it sort of even spreading into some
And
of these light areas, and then do your
I've got other examples. Why they're religious? Because we were doing the Renaissance at the time.
Pushed over the top,
And
so that the
the
tissue
drama of a crucifixion,
you're not conscious,
which is an horrendous thing to happen.
What will happen
Nailed to a
is
cross.
the tissue
But when it's vertical
will
and it's
suggest
horizontal
the edge of petal
and it's central,
when you come into painting.
it lacks the true drama,
As long as you
the
don't
horror of the
think
event.
that you're making flowers in the tissue. Does that? That's my
Competition. He was Renaissance, and they did that in the
And I
Renaissance.
said, because I said to Harry,
But that's Caravaggio.
oh, she really
Caravaggio
does well, but when you
was
think
in
about
Morocco
collage,
100 years later. And he's using the tricks of leaps and angles and horror and confusion because things are like falling off the edge of the canvas for the same story. And I know he depicts it at a different moment. He depicts it before the cross has been put up.
there is a figurative
But that's a choice
reference within the art
because he wants to create the drama.
I'm the first one to say it.
Now,
The very first time they used tissue
nothing else
was when I was
is different. It's still a contrasting light and dark.
and the
Contrasting light and dark. It's a smash of red there,
and it works brilliantly.
which adds some
Was
effect.
a photograph I'd taken it.
So how do we learn from this? Well,
And
I just showed you that to show you that they've been doing it since the Renaissance. They've been using composition to create emotion. No, that's wrong. After the Renaissance, because in the Renaissance they were doing that.
It tends to suggest foliage.
They were doing that.
and stalks.
But after the Renaissance, now, in the 16th century, they wanted to create more drama in painting because a lot of people were leaving the church because of the Reformation, and they were trying to get them back. So they ended up saying, well, we want more exciting paintings to get people excited about being in the church. So it was about the 16th century that they had some experiments, 17th century they began to do it. Anything after that, you'll see it happening, but you won't see it before that. Which brings us to some modern paintings. This painting here is very central, like the ones I just showed you, but it's got the angles which create some sense of
certain flowers
energy and drama, but without the shadow,
in a subtle way.
it
That
might be more dramatic.
Like I said, there's a risk
But with the shadow,
in the collage
it becomes quite symmetrical.
that you start to get too literal.
So
when
painters
you're putting down
can use that. So we use it at
texture
hART start to create some energy in the
It's like
picture.
when we do a texture base or when we do chaos and control and we put down tissue paper.
It can be central like that,
You're not.
and it won't have the energy because it's like the Christ on the cross. It's like it's like the Last Supper. It's ordered and it's symmetrical and it's calming, and you can choose to do that. I'm not saying you can't, but if you want to create more drama, there's more you can do. So at an abstract level, you can have a circle, which is just very symmetrical. It fills the shape of the dot in the middle, and there's no response to the placement of the circle because it's central. It's like a flag,
I keep working on it with, and
like
you can use
the maple leaf of the Canada flag,
by using transparent.
like the rising sun of the Japanese flag. It's central. You don't have a reaction to it, but if you just hit that with a hammer and twist it a little bit and push it to the side, like in this painting, suddenly it's sort of affecting you and you're going, oh, and it creates a disturbance. So at an abstract level,
Gary picked up that quite a few of the pictures have
no
sort of
response, it's
utilised
just like
movement
central, calming.
up in here. So he picked
But
up
just
his
by
vegetables.
the same colours, twisted a little bit, more asymmetrical,
And you can,
bent,
in a really subtle,
you start to have a reaction.
pale way.
So we can use that in our paintings. And if you want to get more energy in your paintings, then you use composition to do it.
And
Not everybody does, but it's there. It's part of your. So if you want to have this intensity and it isn't working with the colour, it may be because it's too symmetrical, and you need to knock it off a bit. Stop it being so symmetrical. Pictures like this we call overall compositions because it's just like it just looks like a massive line and texture, and you wouldn't think composition has much to do with that. But if you have a closer look at it, you start to see, oh, he is concerned about that line there, and that darkening there. So there's a sense of where things go inside the frame. It's not a huge thing, but it doesn't make a lot of difference. It doesn't make any difference in that one. It's just an overall abstract composition. It's not about where things are. It's not about where things are. It's not about where things are. It's not about placement, direction. It's got a bit of direction in this one because it's vertical, but it's not an example of what I've got to show you. Right? So what about this one is? Because now we're thinking about what's this direction doing and those directions doing, and how can we use that? If this long horizontal picture, which isn't symmetrical like the last summer, but this sort of tumbling down here and this movement out of the frame, you have a reaction to that. Even something as minimal, it's called minimal and there's hardly anything in it, like something like Kenny would do, a real minimal thing. But you can use minimalism because suddenly you're creating tensions in the picture with where things are in the frame and where the horizontals are and how it tumbles from left to right. So you can have not much in the picture, but if you're not using composition, then you've got nothing much to work with. If you want to have something minimal, then composition is, and where things go becomes one of the forces in the picture. So if I made that my painting, like that, that's in the middle, everything's kind of symmetrical, but I can change that, like this painter did, and then this massive space does something to the rest of the picture because this is so cluttered and this is so empty, and it creates a reaction. If I made this my picture, it's an abstract based on a beach. Sort of like the colours and the feelings of the beach and the ocean. But if I show you the full picture, it suddenly topples off the ends of the picture, which is not realistic because an oceanscape wouldn't do that. But that direction and that extra space gives you a feeling. I'm not asking you to write down what the feeling is. It just does. It just gives you something. This picture here. There. That. There. Well, it's kind of a nice minimal picture. But if you can use space, and space is part of your palette, space and size is part of your palette, then it's not just about colour and direction anymore. It's also about how big something is. How big can I make that orange? Can I make it bigger? And if it got bigger, would it look so asymmetrical? Would it look silly? Then I can't get away with it. Can I go that big? Would it be okay? Or would it be like, I feel like I've got to put something in there because it's worrying me? Or could I go that big? And if I went that big, what would I have to do down here to stop it looking like I hadn't put anything in the picture yet? What would I have to put in there? Would that be enough? Oh, I think it is. It's got a lot more than if it was just that. Because the size and the dimension of the picture, of the space, is where the energy is coming from. And even when you get a realistic picture like this, which creates such grandeur, like it's in the Jamison Valley, even on a small picture like this, it's not a great big picture on this screen, but these angles are all worked out with responding to create this great sense of drama in the picture. It's asymmetrical. It's got this oblique again, this diagonal. And like change it, just change the proposition a little bit. You haven't got it anymore. Colours are the same, everything is the same. But as soon as you do that to it, that vacant space, that massive space, is what creates that weight up there, which the verticals push it down and it has the energy. So how do you learn to do that? How do you learn to squash somebody to the bottom corner of the picture because you want that person to look like she's like alone in the painting? That's what stage one, and that's what this is about. Sorry I did so much listening. There was relating it to the past, there was showing you how artists use it, why they use it, and now it's trying to get you to see it and feel it. And I'm going to use gravity as a way of getting you to feel it. A girl on a swing, and here's the frame. That's not the frame of the swing, that's just the frame of the picture, right? Mm-hmm. Gravity puts her at rest, and there's like no reaction to it. We're dealing with abstract paintings, but we are raised on Earth, and we react to gravity. Verticals, obliques, we react to left and right, we react to top and bottom. So even though we're doing abstract pictures at the moment, there's still I want you to open up the thought and the feeling towards a top and a bottom, and a left and a right, and a vertical. This is just a piece of paper. These two chains are just two lines. But if I change the position of the girl inside the frame, like that, everything changes. From no reaction, calm, to something.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly you have a reaction. Like the picture I just showed you with the orange background, it's how much space creates a force against that. And if you can open yourself to that and feel that, you use it in a picture. You use that amount of space, just the same as you decide how much blue to put in. You decide how much space to put in. Can you help me out here and put into words? Can you check Flavia that they're both on screen? Okay, put into words. And I'm asking for sort of subtle language here. What that does to that girl on the swing, what sort of energy it gives that picture. Open to you. I'll have a sip of my coffee.
Sort of lifts her up a bit.
Okay?
Lifts her up.
It lifts her up.
Well, it's the fear of falling or something as well. Sort of,
A feeling of falling.
yeah. She's high.
Potential falling.
Yeah, kind of just not disturbing. That's not the right word, but like you like I don't know. She's
Yeah.
so high up.
Yeah, that's
Compared to
right,
the other
yeah.
one.
Yeah, so it makes you more.
Where is she? She could
Yeah,
be.
uneasy.
She could be high above the city or anywhere. You know.
There has potential for height and for falling. That's the height. What about the space? This side. It's all part of the same feeling, isn't it? It's how
Yeah,
high it is. What about if I stick her over there, the side? Is that still on, buddy? Now describe what the space does to her.
Makes her look like more lonely because in that one she's like the focus, whereas this one it's more about the space.
It's the same bit of paper, it's just white paper. And suddenly the white paper is a lot more than that. It's space. And space has potential because you have memory and experience of space. I don't know why over that side of the frame she's lonelier. Wouldn't be the same as she was over that side. I haven't got one over that side, I lost it.
She's below, she's down, than that one for some reason.
Yeah, she's down
Down.
and she's compressed. And she's, this force, which is a 15-year-old piece of torn paper, has the potential to create emotion just because it's inside a frame and it's reacting to that shape in those two directions. That's what I want you to feel. The potential force of space and placement where it goes. Another one. What about if I put you back on this one here? Put it inside that one because we haven't talked about direction yet. What's the direction do to that? Thank you. What's the direction do to this potential for falling? But now the oblique direction does something. What's it do? Again, your words.
Yeah, and then just do it, throw it through here, and then pick up your line.
She's not
This is if
like
you want to use
grounded
this
to the side anymore, so there's more space around
Yeah, there's
it.
more, the movement and all the
So because verticals represent being at rest, obliques represent movement. Because we're on this planet and things that are oblique and diagonal represent movement. Now the space around her is on three sides and it's doing something different.
Oh, yeah.
There's more potential for something. What do you feel? By the way, what I'm doing here is converting sensation to words is, you know, a psychological activity and we don't really have to do it, but as art teachers, man, we did it. We spent our lives trying to draw these expressions out of kids. Right? And what it does do is it makes you self-aware. And self-awareness in pictures. Well, if you can't get that, how about you compare it to this one? Is there any difference between these two pictures in the feeling that they give you? Ignoring the tape. That's not part of it.
Yes, the observer is here. I mean, you're the, I don't know, you're the observer in a more, I don't know, with that one than the other ones. For me.
You think you're more of an observer with this one?
Yeah.
Okay, that's personal.
Well, I don't know why, but
Is she at a different angle?
she looks more precarious somehow.
There's less space on the left.
Yeah, there's lots of differences. There's space here and there's no space there. She's coming out of the corner there. She's sloping this way, she's sloping that way. So we recognise they're different. But what I'm asking you is, the difference is so subtle, and yet I'm asking you to look inside and go, this feels different because it's like more than this, or this more than this. And the act of looking for the word is the thing that is opening up the neural pathway. The act of looking for the word.
When she was sitting stuff
Because
out.
she's closer somehow, or
And I said, no,
I don't know if
let's
it's
get
even like the
so hang on. Even though that's
steepness of her direction
Yeah.
or intent.
I think this because the observer is closer to her.
You feel closer to it.
Well, yeah.
I
because
think
the
maybe
way that
because
swing is-
there's a frame here, and so you're seeing her inside, and you're closer to the edge of the frame, and so maybe you feel that therefore, because she's closer to the edge, that you're closer to her. And maybe here she's further away from you. Maybe that's what you're saying.
Yeah, in this one she's sort of leaning towards the edge, and this one is just going into the middle.
The thing about abstract painting is that
It's like leaning more towards going horizontal, which would
you
be
don't really,
Calmer.
you've got to find a balance where it's
Now,
That's
ultimately, when you're doing...
calmer. Do you agree that that's calmer?
can
You think it's
see
calmer?
that
This
sort
one's
of,
calmer than that.
that's
I'm upside down, so I can't tell.
I can't tell.
in that part of
As you
the
say, very personal
what
perhaps.
did on her fingers of the slide.
No, this one feels like it's going to fall backwards.
Oh, right, okay, yes.
I think that was
Now,
You, okay.
now, if you the act of just getting you to look at it and try and find the word, that's all I'm doing. I'm just saying, if you look at this and you feel the directions and the spaces, then you are in the realm where I want you to be. Did I turn that on, by the way?
I turned it on.
Okay, good girl. I just need you to feel that because we're going to do it. Because we're going to deal with that now. And I'll do it this way. Well, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you a frame. See? It's a blue frame. And I'm going to get you to move that energy inside you with direction and size. Not texture, and we've been moving it all along. You felt it the very first night. When we squished it, we opened the paint butterfly, and I got you to pick out the paint butterflies. That's what you were doing. You were using the energy to choose. But this is subtler because there's none of the nice colours and textures and goo. It's not the little excited child anymore. It's just really subtle. Okay. So if you regard that as your frame, you could just, and where is this going? It's not going towards an artwork. I'm just getting you to feel it. Right? So I put that under there. There's your frame, there's your blue field, there's your light blue. Feel that. Change the angle. And feel that. Change the height. And feel it again. And see that it's changing.
Tina, we're going to send out next week.
Use a torn one.
Some practical drawings.
What I want you to do is, with this one, maximise the sort of reaction you get from it. If that gives you the maximum reaction, then that's what you're going to settle with, right?
You're going to make a mess and then you're going to pull it back. Okay? Why don't you
If you just get the maximum reaction by dividing it in two
you know how
equal spaces,
we're allowed to be messy, you know, we get a bit
I'm not asking you for harmony, unity, no reaction, Leonardo's Last Supper.
and it's sort of a fun
I'm asking you to maximise your reaction to what's there.
yep. And that's that little bit of thing. Now, we'll see look those dark wedges down here.
Try the other way
There
around.
you go. Dark wedges up here. And you can switch. You can switch the hue at any point. And not just
Then, if you can keep the maximum reaction to it, and you have another tone of blue, I'm just going to go with blue.
There's a lovely freedom in the
Can you add another piece and still be getting energy? Because I'm not going to give you any colour. I'm not going to give you any texture. I'm not going to give you any line. I'm only going to give you space and direction. So this is what you're working with. What can I do to this to maximise the energy that I'm getting from it?
throw some down here and throw some. See, you've got that sort of come out and chuck it in there. So you're not putting in a triangle, you're just wedging it down there and then getting your other dark and putting it down there with it. Your other.
As you move pieces around and change them,
See,
when you come up with
Where's your paint?
something that has feeling for you, even though it hasn't got colour and texture and all that good stuff,
Getting in and
Photograph
getting
it.
the paint down, and then she'll pull back.
and you've just created
with the
a
actual
minimalist
defining of it.
picture using tone and one colour. And there's schools of painters that do that. They're called the minimalists. But they're using that energy. And if you know the Distill painters like Mondrian, and they're just dealing with the size and the shape of things.
And you can always bring the green back
Now,
through, but just as a shadow.
here's just the one proviso before you do it. I don't want you to get a piece of paper and just stick it in like that, because that doesn't divide up the space. That's a blue space with a blue shape in it. I want you to break the space. I want you to... and that happens when the area goes right to the edges of the frame, when this space goes right to... and then another space. See, a space is when it touches the frame. A shape becomes a space. And it's like this, it's a shape, but as soon as you do this, it sort of divides into two spaces. It's just this type of thing, right? So you can see where it's heading.
And then you probably can't work on it tonight.
I don't need to spend a long time on it because it's going to be your feelings. And what we're going to do after that is translate that experience into paint.
Okay, so you're in your mid-foot, okay? You break it into that.
And when you see that, you go, that's what they're doing. That's what they've been doing all this time. They've just been dividing the space of the canvas into directions and spaces, onto which they'll build everything that you've just learned in foundation. It's not much. It's not much to do before you start your painting, but it takes a while to get it in, because you keep going off the wrong direction, because it's kind of hard. And the reason it's hard is because you keep thinking of, oh, this is the background, this is the foreground. And it's the simplest thing. It's not a background, the foreground, it's just spaces. And that's why I start flat like this. See, this is flat, this is texture. This looks like what you've been doing. Rough, you know, but this is like foundation work. But all these little changes and things that happen are the things that become the textures in your paintings. You see? But the way they're thinking is this, like the coloured paper. The way they're thinking is that. But the texture is happening automatically. Because why? Because you've been doing it for 6 months. You just do that without thinking now. I've been teaching you like just how to use your writing. And now you've got the writing, this is how to compose it, make a composition. You see how it develops from that into a painting. Okay, so now that's what we're going to do. And you'll just take some photographs, like you do one, photograph it, change it. All I'm trying to do is get you to get in that neural pathway, that thing, which I think is pretty foreign. I think all the stuff that you were doing with foundation and all that, and the way I eased you into it, and Rowena eased you into it, is pretty foreign, right? But it's got relationships to things, you know, it's got relationships to what skirt goes with what top, and how does that look together, you know? But this is kind of really subtle. This is really, it's about space and direction. It's kind of like architectural almost. Okay? So let's go over to the table now, and you just get that neural pathway going, and then we'll do some paint.